I want people to look at the, I call it the nonsense, like, all of the things that they get marketed to with like,
Yeah.
hey, drink this drink and you'll lose blank, blah, 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 or drink this whatever it is and it's going to make you happy and you're going to lose weight and all that stuff. I want people to get to a place where they look at those things and just chuckle and just be like, oh goodness, they're still at it.
We are just excited for you guys to listen to today's episode with Jay Nixon. He is an author, mentor, speaker, coach whose mission is to help each and every person achieve their absolute best life. That's a large statement, and I love that. He is the owner of Thrive Fitness Studio in Palm Desert, California, and the creator of Thrive Fit Forever Transformation Program, a personal development program designed to help you live your best life. If we're not talking about health, I don't know what we're talking about here.
So I love Jay, and you heard that right, guys.
Yeah.
We had a man on the podcast. A man. It was a man. But listen, I'm trying to talk them into it. No.
Listen, it's okay.
No, listen, don't panic. No, here's the thing. Jay has a ton of amazing accolades, and he has, books and all this recognition, as a professional in this space. But what I think you're going to really enjoy about him most is this is just a person who is incredibly positive and just believes in everyone's ability to just reach for their best life. And I loved his energy. I loved, what he's putting out into the space as just such a firm belief in people. And just, it was inspiring to me to talk to him. I really enjoyed this guest.
Yeah, there's not, oftentimes we think about the guests we have on and we either get a lot of information or we get a lot of specific, on the topic. And I feel really inspired after talking to Jay. So I think you guys will too, and you will really enjoy him. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Rachel. Guys, we have an amazing guest for you today. Jay Nixon is on with us, and he is the owner of Thrive Forever Fit. And he is going to be a great guide for you on everything health and fitness. And we're really, really excited to have him. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you again. I went on your podcast. We had a ton of fun.
Yep.
It was a great conversation. I was super excited. And then after we finished that podcast, I was like, you have to come on. Like, we have to just keep talking about all this important stuff.
Of course I said yes, absolutely.
And it's hard to find, people in this space that are really talking about health. Yeah. As weird as that is, like really just talking about health and not just the size of our bodies. So I want to just dive right in, and can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and how you got started being a speaker, author, mentor, and coach, and like what's your background?
Yeah, so background is I've always loved health and fitness, even as a little kid. I think we talked about it on when you came on my show. Is I used to go to GNC, General Nutrition Center, and read all the magazines when I was like a little kid. When my mom would shop in the mall, and I would read, the labels, and I was just always fascinated by that industry. Grew up playing sports in Texas, played college football. Left high school, played football for 2 years in college. Thought I was going to be a doctor because I just loved science and the medicine, the human body. After I stopped playing football, I realized that I didn't love school. I loved playing football. And so the idea of going to, spending the next 10 years in school just wasn't going to happen. And so I decided to become a nurse instead. And then I was going to go on and become a nurse anesthetist, put people to sleep, bring them back to life for a living. Did that for a couple of years and didn't love it. Like I would come home from the hospital after work and realize that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Like I was, as this outgoing type A personality, I wanted to fix everything. So, when you're in like a hospital setting like that, especially from the perspective that I felt like I wasn't making a difference. And I'm like, I can't come home every day and feel like I'm leaving all this on the table. So left that, crazy enough, went back to school and got a degree in healthcare administration and nutrition. I thought, well, I'll fix the system, right? Because that's what I do. I fix stuff. So I'll fix the entire medical system. Luckily, as soon as I graduated with that degree, I got a job for the largest nutrition company in the world. At the time, it was Optimum Nutrition and American Bodybuilding. And so I helped them create one of their distribution centers in Texas. Did that for a few years, left that industry, trying to progress up the chain of career status. Went into the pharmaceutical world. So I've got a really extensive background in health and fitness and wellness in the human body. Did that for a little while, realized that like it wasn't on purpose or on point for me. I was peddling drugs, legal drugs that I would never take myself or even, suggest that my family or my mom take. And so I'm like, all right, dude, you got to do something else. Left that, got a really cool opportunity. I went to work for the NFL alumni. So I got to travel around and go speak at basically all the NFL players that I grew up watching on television. I got to, consult with them on their nutrition and their fitness and all kinds of things. That was just challenging because I was flying all over the country on a weekly basis pretty much. Decided there was no longevity in that. Started my own journey, opened a gym, wrote 2 books, started my own supplement line and my own coaching and transformation business. And here we are today.
It's so cool. I think that, a lot of people hear from successful people and they don't realize how many times they've reinvented themselves and how many times they have looked around and been like, nah, this ain't it.
This ain't it.
This ain't it. And it's like the helpers got to be helping.
Yeah.
And you will see so many, of the successful people that we talk to that are really invested in helping other people. And they have, tried multiple avenues for it and it just hasn't been effective enough. And it hasn't given them that thing that they search for. And it's just really cool to hear, how many times you reinvented yourself and how committed you were to like finding the thing.
Yeah, because on paper, all of those things I just listed sound awesome, right? It's like you work for literally I got to go to, and as a health and fitness guy, like when I got to work for Optimum Nutrition and American Bodybuilding, like I got to go to Mr. Olympia, the Arnold, like all I did all day was talk about stuff that I loved. But I'm like, okay, this isn't it. It feels good, but it's not right. And then I was still kind of young. And so I was still kind of living somebody else's dream. Like I thought I should have a company car and wear a suit all day and have a title and a business card. And so when I went into pharmaceutical sales like that back in, this was a long time ago. I'm 48 now. This is back when I was like in my 20s. That was the coolest job ever, right? I had a company car, unlimited expense accounts, 6-figure salary, crazy bonuses, like just great job. But it was so unfulfilling. I remember just walking around the hospital one day thinking like, this can't be it. Like there's no way that, and most people get a job like that and they keep it forever. Like they don't, it's like, and I'm like, this is not for me. And then I got the job with the NFL and like all my friends were like, oh my God, you get to hang out with like, all of the people that we grew up watching. And I'm like, they're really not that cool. If you want to be honest, they're just dudes. We were just really little and thought they were cool. Now that we're older, it's like, they're not that cool. Most of them are a-holes for lack of a better term. And so it was just like, I knew I had to keep searching. Luckily for me, I'm super stubborn and if it doesn't feel right, then I can't do it. And so I'm super purpose and passionate about what I get to do. And the fact that, and listen, when I started my own gym, like I started with nothing. Like I had no clients, no business experience, no idea how I was going to do what I was going to do and what the next step was going to be. I just knew that the corporate world wasn't for me anymore. And this was the next thing that I had to at least give an effort to. And it's, worked out swimmingly. So I'm ecstatic.
That's rad. I'm here for that. And I just love that you have found the passion in helping people and the amount of lives that you've touched. I mean, it's undeniable that that's been good for everybody. So, so you've worked with a lot of clients over the years. You work in person and online. You have your gym, and then you also work with clients remotely. What would you say over the years has been the most common misconception your clients have when they first come to you looking for guidance and help on their health and nutrition?
Yeah, most people, just like with any, we'll call it health and fitness professional or trainer or nutritionist or whatever, most people that come into your world are looking for you to fix the problem and fix it quickly, right? Because we're programmed to have like a dieter's mentality, and we've been programmed that like we can't love ourselves until this happens, and so I can't love myself until I lose 50 pounds or until I lose 100 pounds, and then I will. And so the secret that or it's the not so secret is I really just use health and fitness as a way to get people into my world. And then I start really trying to help them with the things that matter, which is it's why I wrote my first book called The Overweight Mind. It's like in that entire book, there's not one thing about what to eat, when to eat, what exercises to do, or anything. It's all the psychological reasons why you're stuck in the place you're stuck at, and it has nothing to do with food. Food's just your weapon of choice at this time. But if we can just get you to have a better relationship with food, then we can change the game. And that's really what it is. Most people just have a dysfunctional relationship with food. It's not that I don't believe in good versus bad food. I think that's like societal and marketing and the $1 trillion industry that I get to play in every day has convinced people that they're broken, and they're broken because there's these like good versus bad foods, and there's all these pills and potions and lotions that they need to be taking and using. And so I really just go back down to the psychological reasons of why they are where they are. And then I start unpacking that for them. And a lot of times it just has to do with how they've defined their life and what terms they're defining their life on, and whose terms those are. And they're usually not that person's. And so I do a lot of psychological and mindset work before we even get into the actual nuts and bolts of eat this, don't eat that.
I mean, isn't that so important though? Like,
Yeah,
it really is the baseline for how we operate. And I love that you said, what they want you to do is look for the magic potion, right?
hmm,
Like they want you to look for the magic potion, and all of that relies on you not trusting yourself
yeah,
and looking to someone else for answers. Like,
yeah,
how should I define happiness? How should I define health? How should I define these things in my life? And then you tell me how to get it there. And like this $1 trillion industry relies on those things, relies on you not being able to trust yourself. And so that you have to look for everyone else for answers. Like,
yeah,
so will I be happy at X weight? And it kind of fools you because a lot of people believe that their body weight or size is the thing holding them back from their happiest life.
true.
That's really what they believe. And that happiness is on the other side of an aesthetic that they're chasing. Now, what do you usually say, or what's your best advice for someone who's kind of in that mindset?
Yeah, so I am empathetically brutally honest, if that's even a thing. So, and anybody who comes to me is probably already kind of figured that out. If you follow me at all, like I'm radically honest, but with a massive side of empathy and connection. Like I really care about people, but I refuse to. One of my rules is that I have to be able to tell you the truth if we're going to work together. And secondarily to that, I'll never tell you something just because you want to hear it. And so I just really get honest with people, and I get honest with them really quick. And so usually the first question they ask me isn't really the question they want the answer to. Right. And
Mhm.
so I get past that really quickly, and I just try to get them to dive into the real reasons that they're in the situation they're in. And you also have to remember, like, they've been programmed to believe that they're broken. And so, and when I say they, I say most of us have been programmed at
Yes.
some point to believe that in some way, shape, or form, whether it's from our parents, sadly enough, from society, maybe from just marketing in general. Like I remember when I was growing up, like that was the days of like the Kate Moss days of like, I mean, like uber super like pencil thin was like if you weren't that thin, then you were overweight, which I think we can all agree was never a great idea. And so society and marketing has tricked people into believing that there's this type or this look or this whatever it is, that if you're not that, then you're broken somehow, and that you're less than. And so I think it's important that I address all of those things to begin with, and get them to understand that like There are no quick fixes. There are no magic bullets. I don't even believe in the D word, which is diet. I hate to even say it. I believe in trying to help you create a lifestyle that you can live with forever. So I'm not the guy for, I want to lose 10 pounds to get ready for bikini season. That's not me. I mean, can I do that for you? Absolutely. But will I help you with that? I mean, no. And not because I don't love you or care about you, but because I can't set you up for failure. And so I only want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So if you're someone who's looking for a lifestyle transformation and not a quick fix, then I'm your guy. That's kind of what I tell them from the beginning. And so I've got to get them to buy into that level of relationship. And it has to be a relationship because it takes a lot longer than me starving and depriving you for 30 days.
I think it's just so interesting, Kelsey, that Jay brought up the the heroin chic episode that we
Yes,
just
I did
did.
too.
I was like,
I was like,
was
Kate
he
Boston.
listening? That hasn't even come out yet. Jay, I don't know if you saw, but there was an article that has been storming the internet that heroin chic is back and that bye bye booty, and we're all going back to Kate Moss. And so, we had, this is just like fresh in my mind because we had just talked about like morality behind body sizes. And you just hit it right on the head with people coming in believing that there is a morality attached to the size of their body and that it means something about them. And I think that introducing that concept, that like full stop, no,
Right.
is just it's right now. I think it's a little radical, but I'm hoping that it's really going to catch steam. And it's so good to hear other people in the industry introducing that idea, morality behind body types and food and even fitness is
Yeah.
just it's a hard stop. It's no from us.
Right. And that's where the message and I come from is like I have to get you to understand that like there's food's not the problem, right? Like we've been trained that like food's the issue. Like and so it's all relationship based, right? It's like it's your relationship with yourself, right? It's your relationship with food, your relationship with your body. And so I think all of those things have to be addressed and talked about. Like I had a client just the other day, she said, "Jay, I've lost 60 pounds, but I still feel like the overweight person that was 60 pounds ago. And I can't let that go. Like, how do I work through that?" And so we're really working on like just getting her to see herself, not even just visually, but like, internally as the beautiful human that she is and not be so, you know, attached to the weight in and of itself. Like, I think my belief is weight loss is a side effect. And so I never even look at that as the first metric. Like my happiest days are when a client calls me and says, "Hey, I just got off of a medication." Or, "Hey, I just, walked up a flight of stairs and take it instead of taking the elevator." And like, so those metrics mean way more to me than like, I mean, yes, we use the scale only because it is what it is, right? Like, I mean, if we're trying to lose weight, people want a number, right? Like, if I tell a client, like, "Oh, you can never weigh yourself. I don't care what you weigh now. I don't care what you weigh at the end." They'd be like, "Well, I'm going somewhere else because I need to know a number," right? We're really number based. So, in lieu of taking that away from them, I try to emphasize the importance of everything else and just make them understand that like that's simply a side effect. And so if we do enough of these other awesome things, then that side effect will be great and you'll get to whatever, numerical value that you want to get to, but your body size and your body image have nothing to do with your happiness or success. And I want you to try to start to love yourself for who you are and not what you believe society is looking at you as.
Yeah, because, like you said, even with the metrics, even with knowing I lost 60 pounds, you are working with a woman who
Yeah,
that is
psychological.
that exactly. So like what are the metrics if you haven't worked on your mental health because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, I love that. I think that's a good segue into talking about self-sabotage for a minute
Sure.
because in terms of goal setting and in terms of success, a lot of people either categorize themselves as a self-sabotager or see characteristics
Mhm.
of self-sabotaging. And I wanted to know how do you address this with clients, and how do you talk about this part of the mental game?
Yeah, it's something that comes up all the time. It's I mean, it's probably one of the cornerstones of one of the things that I have to get people to understand. So you can call it self-sabotage, you can call it upper limiting if you've ever read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. So there's all kind of information out there about it. But what happens is it's really a built-in, I mean, the best way to think about it is like a thermostat. So like, your Nest or whatever it is, it's on your wall, and let's say that you're an 80-degree person and that's where you feel the most comfortable. Like at 80 degrees is like you're just comfy and like life is just kind of going across, it's equanimity, everything is really cool. So when we start to have success, oftentimes that thermostat goes up to like 85 and 86, and we can sustain that for a little while. But then we have this identity crisis on, because you always kind of fall back to your most comfortable place. As humans, we're designed for comfort. And so unless you change your belief system about who you are, right? I don't care how much success you have, you'll always kind of fall back down to that level of what you believe your key or your core number is. And oftentimes you'll fall below that, right? And it has a lot to do with like the people you're surrounding yourself with, the information that you're allowing in. And so there's a lot of variables that go into that. So not to move away from that particular self-sabotage thing, but you have to look at, I'm a big believer in inputs. So there's two things you need to do with input, because we're consistently receiving information. So if I can teach people how to either implement or delete, so you've got to audit your inputs, everything that comes in. It's either got to be implementable, meaning this is valuable information that I can use to move towards the direction of my goals, and therefore I will take that information and use it, or you have to delete it. What most people do is they get stuck in the vortex of consuming everything, neither implementing and or deleting, and therefore it creates this internal chaos, and that internal chaos then translates into self-sabotaging behaviors, because the confused mind says no, and for lack of a better term, they just begin to derail their own success. And so as that person, let's just use weight as an example, and say somebody weighs, I'm going to just throw out numbers, say they want to lose 50 pounds. They begin to lose that 50 pounds. Let's say they lose 25 pounds and everything is going great. Life is life, right? Life is going to present you with roadblocks and challenges and obstacles. I don't care if you're me or you two guys or anybody. And so what happens at the first sign of an obstacle, which might be an overeating binge or something of that nature, they will almost always go back to where they began and just start the consumption of all the things they were doing before they started the program and the process. And so the beautiful thing about having support and accountability and being part of a group is that you can become aware of that quicker and actually get out of that downward spiral. And so I think there's so many moving pieces and parts, and I didn't really articulately answer your question amazingly, but I think there's so many things that go with self-sabotage that I think first and foremost, awareness would be my number one thing. You've got to really get aware of when you're doing it and what the triggers are that are causing you to do it. And then we can start to like give you new things that are going to that can replace those old triggers and those old habits.
Yeah, no, I think you talked about that really eloquently, because self-sabotage is a complicated thing. Like, it is an extremely complicated feeling that we have, where we're kind of at a battle with ourselves, because we look to say, like, if there is one person that is to blame for what has happened, what I'm doing, it's me, right? And I'm just sabotaging my progress and not taking into account that there are several factors and things that we've been conditioned to believe, and habits that we are conditioned to go back to, and messages that we are receiving constantly that are there to interrupt every progress that we make. And I think that for a lot of people listening, like, it's totally normal and expected that if you're in a journey where you're looking to heal your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, your mental health, anytime you are on that journey, there is no straight path. That's why it's a journey. So there are going to be times where you're going to mess up.
Totally.
And something is going to derail you and is going to set you back, and you feel like, have I gone back? No, you haven't, because you haven't lost all the progress that you've made. You may recognize old behaviors that are still there. They're still there to interrupt you, but that doesn't mean that you've lost all the progress that you've made. And I think that sometimes that can be really hard for us, because we are creatures that are very hard on ourselves.
Yeah,
And it can feel like, have you lost all of the progress? And in our society really like fuels that fire,
totally.
because it's just like one salad doesn't mean, like one healthy meal doesn't change your whole diet, and one workout doesn't, sabotage or make your fitness. Like none of these one factors are ever going to be the thing. It's like several little factors, several
Yeah.
little habits that we have on a daily basis, and those are all part of our journey.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's like you said, like one good meal, like one salad is not going to make you healthy. One piece of pizza is not going to make you unhealthy, right? So it's
Hmm.
like we've got to get out of that mentality of like it's the all or nothing. And so what people need to understand is like it's the consistency over time. And I think one of the big things I like to get people to do is define terms, right? Like I think
Yeah.
language and the terms that we live our lives by are really important. And then because when you know why you believe what you believe, and you know that it's your belief and not somebody else's belief, that can be a massive game changer for you. So I like to get people to define like what does healthy mean to you? Like what does food mean to you? Like what's your definition of food? What's your definition of success? What's your definition of failure? Like all of those things. And when you get people to really start to unpack those, I just did a live event recently, and the pre-work was people had to bring with them, and this was they had to have their own definitions. It can't be like can't Google it, or can't be Webster's dictionary. They had to define success and failure. They had to define health. They had to define food. They had to define love, happiness, just basic core words. You wouldn't believe how challenging this was for most people because they've never been asked that question. Like, well, no, this is what it is. And so when we got in the room and everybody started like dissecting what their definitions were, everybody had a different definition of all of those things. And then what they realized is like some of their definitions weren't even theirs. They had been
Mm.
programmed, but those definitions had been programmed into their brain either by society, by their parents, by an old antiquated belief system that they used to have that they really don't still have. And so there's just conflict. And so once I got them to do that, and then moving forward, everybody who came to that live event is now like looking at things differently because when you know what terms you're living by and you're certain that they're your terms, then that's why you believe what you believe, right? And we're not really ever going to be more, have more, or do more than what we believe we're capable of. And so if we're
Yeah.
not even defining our own terms, how are we going to get to that place?
One thing you said there that I have not actually defined for myself, that I was like, oh my God, I should have done that, was failure.
Mm,
I think like I had always thought about success
yeah,
and, health and some of those other things, but I will often use, I don't want to say often, I have used fairly often such a failure, and without really defining what that is
yeah.
and what the context is, what that looks like and what that means for me. And I think that's a really good one to sit with and just think about.
It's funny you brought that up. So we went around the room with failure, and somebody was like, "Okay, Chief, like, what's your definition of failure?" And I was like, this is gonna make you mad, but I actually don't have one." And they said, "What do you mean you don't have one?" And I'm like, "It's not a word that I use. It's not a word that I believe in." And they were like, "Well, how can that be?" And I was like, "Well, because the in my belief system, this is Jay Nixon's belief system. The only way I can ever fail is if I quit. I have zero I'm never going to quit. It's just not in my DNA. So therefore I can never fail. And so if I can never do something and if I'm never going to experience that, then why would I give it any energy? Like, why wouldn't I just take my energy and use it somewhere else in a definition or in a term or a belief that I'm actually going to live and thrive in? And so
Mhm.
I think it's perspective, right? It's like that. And that's my belief system. Somebody else might challenge me on that, say, well, that's not true, Jay. You failed at this and this and this. And I'm like, well, I mean, maybe I didn't get what I wanted, but I don't necessarily know that I failed at it. I learned from it, and then I recalibrated my processes and I went after something else, or I went after that same thing again. And so I don't think we even have to have a definition for things, as long as but I don't use that term either. Like I don't use the term failure with myself and or with a client or it's not in my vocabulary. And so therefore I don't feel like there's no necessity for it to have a definition.
Yeah, it's cool to think about defining your own things, because really, I think what everybody wants is to live their truth.
Yeah.
And how can you possibly live your truth if you're not really sure what that is, or you haven't defined what it is? Because then you're just living someone else's truth.
Totally.
Which is awkward.
The more I've done that, it's very awkward. But I mean, I think we can all agree. I was going to say most people. A lot of people are living somebody else's truth, somebody else's life, somebody else's belief systems. Because from the time that we're born, that's how we learn, right? We are given beliefs based on, our parents' beliefs, based on, most people practice the same religion that their parents practiced. Not because they chose that religion, but because, well, that's how I grew up, right? Most people have the same money belief that their parents had. Not because they learned that belief, not because they went to work and they realized that, oh my gosh, this is what mom and dad always said. And so we are programmed with a ton of belief systems that don't necessarily serve us. For the most part, they usually don't serve us. And so
they usually don't serve us.
Yeah. And
I think they're based on a metric that isn't ours.
And once you start doing that, like if we, I mean, this is not for this podcast, but if we went through Jay Nixon's beliefs about life, right? About everything, like marriage and relationships and whatever, like people would probably be shocked, because I have different belief systems than I would say society prescribes that you're supposed to have. And so, and about a lot of things, not just those topics I brought up, but it's only because I've chosen to define my life. I've just chosen to find what terms I'm willing to live within. And so I think once you start doing that, you'll unpack a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought that up, because that was actually one of the ones that came into my mind, was that these are the metrics that we're constantly measuring, and we can receive that information and decide if we want to keep it or if we want to dismiss it, right? So like one of the ones that always pops into my mind from a relationship standpoint is like, okay, the metric for society is I'm supposed to be here in this relationship and moving on to kids, and like that's the next steps. And it always, like, that was always presented with me, and I was like, not mine. Like, totally. Not for me. Like, that's not part of success or failure for me. And I had to decide that, like, it didn't mean I failed, because that wasn't part of my belief system, how I was going to live my life. Right. But it was one of those things where, like, it's such a concrete societal belief that you're presented with and you're constantly reminded with, and you have to decide for yourself when you're presented with those questions if they align with you or if they don't, if that metric for failure or success is yours or if it's not. Yep. And if it's not, you just easily dismiss it away.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't, right? And therein lies the problem. It's like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, therefore I shall do it, because I don't want to rock the societal boat. And so I believe that once you begin to, I'm the same way. So like Lori and I have been together, I think in March, it'll be 16 or 17 years. We're not married. Probably will never get married. We don't have children. We live together. We have all the same things if you saw us, you would think we were married, but we're not. And so when you guys have it worse than men do, like when we first got together, like, why won't he marry you? Like, why won't he marry you? And he won't make you an honest woman. When are you going to have children? And she's like, we don't want children. Why on earth would we do that? Like, that's not for us. I mean,
great decision.
She's like, heaven forbid we have to. No. So we both knew we never wanted kids. We have no interest in the conventional definitions of what you're supposed to be. And our lives are great. It's like, don't have to live by conventional definition or conventional, societal terms, and you can have an amazing life, and it will all be okay. I promise you.
It'll be better.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's yours.
Exactly.
It's yours.
Beautiful.
Oh, Jay, something that I really love about your approach is the range of topics that you discuss. So, like,
Mhm.
it isn't ever about one thing when it comes to improving your health, improving your fitness, improving your happiness.
Totally.
It's, the broad range. You've got energy, sleep, goals, mental health, lifestyle. Like, all of this is relevant when you're, discussing goals with a client and where they wanna be and get. And I want you to touch on for a minute why you think this is so important when working with people. Why
Yeah.
should we, use this approach?
Again, I'm going to go back to this, the word, and it's lifestyle. It's like the life that you want to live. Like if you're singularly focused on, I want to lose 30 pounds, right? And you're not willing to look at all of the metrics and the variables that actually go into the proper loss of 30 pounds if you need to lose 30 pounds, then A, it's not going to be sustainable. B, it's probably going to cause you an issue somewhere else in that equation because you're not addressing all of the things. And then, from my experience and doing this for a really long time, you're probably going to do it in a fashion that is going to be more harmful than it is beneficial. And so that's why I believe that, like, that's why I don't use the D word. That's why I am, everything I talk about is, I want you to be forever fit. That's why I named my business Thrive Forever Fit. I'm not interested in you being fit for a wedding. Like, do I want you to get fit for your wedding or your daughter's wedding? Yes, I do. I want you to feel and look amazing, but I want you to do that for the rest of your life. Right. And so I'm really trying to teach you like life skills that are going to be repeatable over and over and over and over again so that you never, like, one of the things I always tell people is like, I never want you to have to diet again. I never want you to have to know somebody like me for the rest of your life. Like, and the next thing to that is I never want your kids to have to know who I am or what I do or anybody like me. Right. And so what that means is like, if I can teach you how to live a lifestyle, then your kids are going to watch you live that lifestyle. And guess what? That's going to be some positive programming that they're going to adapt. But on the flip side, they're also going to get programmed by the other side of you if you don't make these changes. And then they're going to end up with somebody like me in their life when they're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And I don't want that. Like, I would like to put myself out of business. I'd like to put me and everybody else that does what I do out of business. And so if I can do that, then that's my, I mean, listen, I know it's a bold statement, but that's my real goal, is to just to give people the real tools and the real practical belief system in their self, right? One thing I always tell people is like, listen, right now you may need to believe in my belief in you more than you believe in the belief you have in yourself. But I want that to shift, right? I want that to move in where you start to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. And so I think there's a lot to, there's so much to do, right? There's so much to unpack that, like, just focusing on a singular thing is just never gonna get it done.
Well, that's a fantastic answer, first of all,
Oh, thank you.
because, on the flip side of, and I hate to keep referencing it, but on the flip side of the diet industry, which wants you to rely on them forever, you
Yeah.
have the other side that says, like, once we do enough good work here, I want you to not even know who I am.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, to do so much empowering and passing that power in, like, having people find it within themselves that they don't need these other things, because,
Totally.
like, guys, you actually don't need these outside forces. You need to just work on listening to what your belief system is, what your life looks like for you, and the things that begin to matter when that is all, like, unraveling, and your health is, I mean, if we haven't learned how important health is now, I don't
Yeah.
think we ever will.
I agree. I want people to look at the, I call it the nonsense, like, all of the things that they get marketed to with, like,
Yeah.
hey, drink this drink and you'll lose blank, blah, 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 or drink this, whatever it is, and it's going to make you happy and you're going to lose weight and all that stuff. I want people to get to a place where they look at those things and just chuckle and just be like, oh, goodness, they're still at it. You know what I mean? Instead of looking at those things and being like, do you think that will work? Right? Because I think
Yeah.
we know it's not going to work. Like, it's not going to work when you click the button and buy, but you
Mhm.
do it anyway because you're so overwhelmed and you're so just, you're sick of struggling. And so my big thing is like, I want people not to have to struggle. Like, I want you to have a relationship with food that is just fun and flexible and it's awesome. And like, cause it can be, and I'm a living proof of that. And so many other people that I've worked with are living proof of that. So I know it's not a fallacy. I know it's a real thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I have a couple like rapid fire
Yeah.
questions for you if you're into it.
I'm into
Um,
everything.
what do you think the biggest, it might not be an easy answer, but what do you think the biggest mistake people make in the pursuit of better health?
Oh my gosh. The biggest mistake. Yeah, I don't know how rapid fire that's going to be, but it was quick for you. The biggest mistake people make in their pursuit for health. Is that okay? I believe it is the time frame in which they are expecting that result. And so we live in a world right now that is uber instant gratification. Like, you can push a button. Like, I'm convinced that the Amazon guy
Yes.
lives in my neighborhood, because sometimes you push the button and then the doorbell rings and I'm like, he's already here. Right. And so
Yeah.
it's such a quick fix, instant gratification and then social media too. It's like, I put this up, somebody liked it. Oh gosh, that feels good. We want that quick hit of dopamine and all those things. And so I believe that it's the time frame in which they think that they're going to get a result. And so my big thing is I try to get people to expand their time horizon and realize that, I read a quote the other day by Winston Churchill, and it was that success is not final and failure is not fatal. And so I love the first part of that. Like, success is not final, meaning like, I believe that success is incremental, meaning like, we're having success right now because we're having an amazing, awesome conversation. Like, we're actually winning in this moment. And if I don't look at that as success, then I could get really overwhelmed and look for something that like has to be this epiphanal thing. Like, I can't be successful until I lose 50 pounds. Well, no, it's not true. Like, you're successful when you lose 1 pound. And so there is no finish line in life for me, and hopefully for anybody that I get to touch. I want people just to know that like abundance and happiness and this beautiful thing we get to do is just, it's infinite as long as we're still breathing. And then the failure is not fatal. Like, like I said, I don't believe in failure, but like, stumbling and falling down and having obstacles and roadblocks and adversity isn't fatal. Like, it's just part of the process. And so the last part of that quote is goes on to say that the true profound, success is found in the consistency of those that are willing to continue on. And so that's something that's really important to me. So I believe people need to expand their time horizon. And my answer to this is, somebody says, when they say like they're going to quit, or Jay, I don't know if I can do this anymore, or blah, 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 something of that nature. My question is usually, well, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
And if you start to think about the alternative of not, like, the alternative of progress is what, right? That's, we're going in the wrong direction. And so when you think about it in terms of that, it's like, what's the alternative? And so if that's the case, then broaden your time horizon. Like, be willing to be consistent over a long period of time. And I can promise you're going to have the success that you want.
It just goes back to, what you said before, Jay, about, just waiting for the happiness
Yeah.
to come with, the 30 pounds or the, whatever metric that you've set, and saying like, well, I'm on hold on happiness until then, and missing so much of your life. So many things going by, waiting, and so often we hit these arbitrary success metrics and then go, wow, this didn't really feel like I was expecting it to. Like, every day I wake up, it's not sunshines and rainbows everywhere. And I thought that was going to be the thing, but it really is, if you think about it in a long game, and like, we're here and every single day is an opportunity that can't really be wasted. It really opens up the possibilities to say, like, it doesn't have to be right now, because there are so many things right now that I can be happy and grateful for.
Yeah, to your point, I've had several clients that have lost over 100 pounds. And I'll be honest with you, it terrifies me because I know when they get to that 100 pounds that every single one of them is like, well, this didn't feel like I thought it was going to feel. Right. And like, now what? And that's when the real work begins, or the real, consistency needs to kick in, because on that journey, when you set that kind of goal, like, I mean, it's awesome, right? It's big, and it's like, it's transformative, and there's milestones as you go along. And then when you get there, it's like, well, now the consistency is the most important thing that you're ever going to have, because if not, like, you're going to go back in the reverse direction. And so stop waiting until you hit that, metaphorical 100 pounds or whatever it is, and just start believing that every waking moment, like I said, like right now, I feel blessed and grateful that we're just having an awesome conversation. Like, who gets to do this? Huh? Pretty cool.
Right. Right, Rachel? That's why we
Yeah.
keep the podcast.
Oh my God, even though my mic doesn't work and nothing works and it's all on fire. Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is a real pleasure to be able to talk to people like Jay on a daily basis. So, rapid fire number 2.
Here we go.
Two-parter. Yeah.
Two-parter. Well, yeah, I'll do one. You do the other one.
Okay.
Okay. What is, in your opinion, the healthiest habit someone can implement?
Ooh. In my personal opinion, my belief is, gosh, I don't even know that it is a healthy habit, but it is the process of having a positive mindset. I think is the most important thing that anybody can do. And I know that some people are going to be like, well, that's not really a habit. Well, it kind of is. And I only say that because it's going to take some reps to get there, right? Especially if you're not a really positive person. So I have trained myself over the course of the last 20 years that I am obnoxiously positive, like to a point of like, I can find beauty and something positive out of almost anything. And that's really annoying if you're not a positive person. Like, that's not who you want to be around. But it's such a beautiful way to live life. I mean, I'm telling you, if you can start to see, like, and I teach my clients like a reframing tool to try to like get them to like start to see things differently, and how they can actually use things that they used to perceive as negative as a transitional point to actually become more positive. So I would say positive mindset is the healthiest thing that somebody can have, because if you have a positive mindset, there's very little that you're not going to be able to overcome or conquer or get through or figure out a way to get it done.
I couldn't agree with that more. I get to the point where it's like annoying. Like, I'm like, my partner calls me the master reframer, because I'll be like, well, we could look at it that way. Or one of my best friends, she's like nervous about turning 30. And I was like, okay, like, let's just think about this for a minute. Like, I understand you're like, you thinking of 30 as like all of a sudden you're like super old and that's not something you want to do. But are you happier now, the place you are in now in your life, than you were at 25, 26? Really think back to 25, 26. Like, were you
Me and Jay are really eye rolling at the turning 30.
I was about to say, we're going to have words after the podcast for sure.
Major eye roll.
I'm just saying, she's having a crisis about it. And I was like, well, here's the thing about it, is that like, you have gained so much in those years following that like you wouldn't have even had not even close access to. And like the person that you are now, how like aware you, how self-aware you are now, how confident you are, the life that you're living, like, is so much better than for me, my broke 25 self. I'm not trading that in at any point. So I think it's just like, it's one of those things that like reframing really takes practice, and it takes reps, and it's not something that you're either born with or you're not born with. And I think that's something that people really have a mistake. They've made that grave mistake where they think like you are just an always positive person because you were born that way. Like, no, it's not. Like, those take reps. Those take, really some self-reflection and moments of feeling negative and feeling like, how could I, use this to my advantage, or being able to even ask that question to yourself of being like, this seems like a really, negative situation. How could I use this to my advantage? What could I learn here? And that just starts to shift your mind in a way that looks for for more of the abundance, looks for more of the answers and the power that you can find in those situations to turn it into something that is advantageous for yourself.
Totally. And if you get around a bunch of people that are doing that, like collectively, I mean, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the power is exponential. Like you can't believe, like if you can get your circle of success to start believing that way, having a positive mindset in speaking and acting and thinking, I mean, gosh, it changes the game for everybody.
Game changer for sure. And the second half to that question is, what do you consider to be one of the most destructive habits that many people have?
Okay, so the easiest answer would be to have a negative mindset, but I won't take that route. But if you do, get rid of it because it's very destructive. So, one of the most destructive habits that somebody can have as far as their health and fitness would probably be comparison. I think comparison is the thief of joy. And so, I mean, obviously, that's not my quote. I don't know who said that. Somebody way more famous than me. But yeah, comparison is really it's so detrimental because we're usually comparing our situation to somebody's highlight reel, or you know what I mean, to something that's not really comparable. Like very rarely when we're comparing ourselves to somebody else are we comparing apples to apples, like straight up factual, we're in the same place, same time, same situation, same everything. That is so, like, I mean, probably 1% of the time might that even possibly be possible. So we're always comparing something that's not even really comparable, and so it's by that definition, it's a false belief that we're extracting from that comparison. Then we're living in this belief state that is not even real. Like it's not. There's no truth or factuality to it, and so it's actually really detrimental because we've convinced ourselves of something that's not valid.
Yeah, it's so, it goes back to like what we had said before about defining your own life and defining your own truths. And it's like, we want to do that. But then at the same time, we want to look over and check the answers on who is working on the test next to us. And
Yeah,
it's like, their answers don't matter. They're working on a different test.
totally, absolutely. You know, you look at
And
So,
there
everyone,
really is no,
everything. It's all the same. Yeah.
yeah. There's honestly no comparison because you could even get the closest possible. Like me and Rachel are sisters, right?
Hmm.
You would think like we grew up in the same house, we can experience the same situation and come out of it with two very different stories.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
two very different accounts of how that went down, how we perceived, how someone else was acting, what happened during that situation. We come out of it on polar opposites. And you would think like, well, you're close enough in age, right? You grew up in the same house, you have the same parents. Like, isn't that a pretty close? Like, nope, not even close. And that
No.
is like when you really get to the nitty gritty of it. So I just think like when all of us are comparing ourselves against people who live a totally different life than us, it's bizarre. They're not even, it's not a comparable thing. Someone else is living a totally different life, and that you could eat the same thing, do the same exact workouts, maybe even be genetically the same, which you're not going to do, and
All
you're
right.
going to come out with different results.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. There's no one thing. People come to me and say, Jay, what should I eat? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like we're getting to have a lot of
Brilliant.
conversations around that. They're like, well, my
Mhm.
friend eats this. And I'm like, well,
Was it good for your friend?
it may not work for you. Right. Like, so there's no one size. I mean, we're so dynamically unique that we need to remember that and not compare ourselves to anybody else's. And listen, we live in a world now of like of highlights and quick hits and things of that nature. So run your race, like get as happy with your life as you possibly can, and then surround yourself with people that are going to be supportive of that. And I think that's really key.
Mhm.
that's it. Right there. That's it. The end. I mean, run your race and surround yourself with people who are here for you. I mean,
Yeah.
what could be more of a path to success than that? Jay, this has been so wonderful. I really enjoyed this, and I think our listeners are going to really enjoy this. So
Cool.
tell them where they can hear from you more.
Sure. So my website is thriveforeverfit.com. You can find pretty much anything about me on that. And if you just Google Jay Nixon, Nixon, you'll find my podcast, my YouTube, my pretty much all the things that I do.
We'll also link a lot of your stuff in the show notes too, so
Yeah.
that people can just kind of like click and find you. Because obviously, when we bring great guests on, and I talk to you about this all the time, but when it comes to surrounding yourself in your circle, that includes things that you're consuming all the time from the internet. From what are you consuming on a daily basis? Is it waist trainers, or is it someone who's like, hey, let's work on our mindset here?
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
let's work on health. And that's a really important part of, I think, modern day. It's a really important part of your circle, is what you're consuming.
Absolutely. I think inputs are vital to, you know what I mean? Like to how you're, the success that you're going to have. And that's from, personal, professional, everything. You've got to really be auditing your inputs.
Yeah, for sure.
Get Jay in your circle, guys. He's well worth it. He's
Oh,
a man, but we
Yeah.
don't have many men on the podcast. I'm
You
gonna
know
be
what's
honest,
you know what's
Jay.
funny? 90% of my clients are female. I think I lost my father when I was really young, so I was raised by my mom and my grandma, and I've just always gravitated toward wanting women to be really successful. And so I think that's, I think we're all just energy, and so I think the energy that I give off is really hopefully safe and supportive and all of those things. And so surprisingly or not, like 90% of my clients are, and my podcast listeners, and if I look at all my data, I'm like, how come dudes don't like me? I mean, like, dudes don't listen to anything I say. Like, so
They're into
yeah,
self-improvement.
yeah. Maybe I got to get more rogue. I don't know. I got to get some tattoos, or I got to get something. But guys just seem to not be interested in anything that I have to say. So
I'm gonna just go on a limb here and say you've got the superior audience. Anyway,
I would agree with you 100%. Like our guys, like our egos are so big and we're so fragile, and we're a whole other kind of mess. So I love what I get to do, and I am unbelievably blessed with the audience that has chosen to partake in my information.
All right. Thank you, Jay, so much. And guys, don't forget to check him out.
Thank you guys.